Alright guys, so I know I'm pretty terrible at kind of uploading what's up with this car. I've only uploaded little flybys and stuff like that, and it's been a long time since I've updated anything. I've had the car about 10 months now, and a lot has changed, so I'm just going to go ahead and go over it today, because I do want to upload videos about the things I do to it, but it just feels weird uploading, like, for instance, like I get new brake pads and rotors, and it just feels weird to update that after so much else has been done. So today I'm just going to go over it. I'm at a spot right now, it has good shade, but the solar panels tend to make like a squeal, so if that is in the video, I do apologize. It's just the best place I could film right now. So I'll go ahead and start off with all the stuff that's kind of the same. I'm on the same wheels and tires, same brake setup, I believe. Sway bars last time. I had a good amount of stuff. It's all kind of stayed the same, but a lot, like I said, has also changed. I'll go ahead and start off just with the stuff you could see, because it's easier. Obviously, I have a red vented hood. It's because I found it really cheap with the vents already in it. These vents are worth about $350 just for the set of vents. And you have to cut your own hood. I didn't really want to cut my HR hood just because it was in good condition. It matched the car well. And this one came for sale for $250 with the hood, everything already cut. So I was like, yeah, whatever, I throw it on. The vents make a huge difference. You can actually see the heat. You can actually see the heat escape the hood whenever you're driving, so it's pretty sweet. And I do feel like the front end is more planted because this actually extracts air as well, so it helps reduce front end lift, and I do feel a difference. Not a huge difference, but it's definitely there. If I were to switch back to the stock hood, you would notice it. And yeah, so that's basically that. Headlights are now HR headlights because they're so much better. They light up so much nicer, and they look a lot better too. I hate the DE headlights where they have the orange reflector right here, just not my thing. So these made a huge difference. Love that. Got my custom plate mounted because California sucks. I have HR taillights in the rear because I found them really cheap. Wasn't like the biggest fan of them, but they're cheap and they are kind of a nicer taillight. So I still have the DE ones. I can switch behind them or switch between them. I don't really have an issue with them. I put on a different rear bumper and cut it just because I want to go for the cut bumper look. I am going to cut it up a bit higher, but I need to get a different crash bar because I don't like the way the aluminum one sits right under it, as you can see right there. So I'll probably cut it about an inch below the turn signal where everyone else does it. In the interior, it's just been cleaned up mainly. As you remember, the seat was really bad. I got basically a brand new seat at the junkyard. It's from an 04, so it actually holds me a little better and has some more adjustment. Really just slight differences from 03s and 04s, and this is one of them. I love the seat way more. It holds me in a lot better. Much tighter. Just really changed the car, to be honest, and it looks so much better. I still need to find a clean passenger. I've yet to find a clean passenger, but for now it's all right. Got the tripod up there. That's for the filming when I drive. The door panels are HR door panels just because they look better and feel better. They also have a cup holder. I really liked that, so I ended up getting these. They're in pretty good condition. The passenger's a little worse than the driver, but they're both pretty good, so I did not really care too much. I had the Nismo pedal before. I added in the dead pedal because mine didn't come with it. I added in the floor mats. Mine didn't have the clip. Now it has the clip, but the floor mats are ripped, so it doesn't really hold in too well. But it is better than nothing, I suppose. But I have a Nismo shift knob in there. Different head unit as well. Switched over to a Kenwood just because the colors match and everything. And I wanted kind of a nicer head unit. Besides that, I just have gauges in here that read water temp and oil temp, and then a radar detector just to be safe. The oil temp is the one that's hooked up right now. The water temp is not. I don't know where my keys are. I just have to get a different sensor for the water temp because it is a Coirad radiator. But yeah, you can see it works right there. It's because my radiator is a Coirad, so in order to use the bungs that are pre-welded into it, you need to use a Japanese sensor, and the AEM sensors do not thread in. So I will end up buying probably like a Blitz sensor or something just to get that working. Besides that in here, the only thing I changed is I got a working cup holder. So now this whole interior is pretty functional. I like just having a clean interior. I like stock wheel, even though I might look into getting a new one because of this. It's kind of fading off, peeling off when I drive. But yeah, the whole interior is pretty clean. As you guys will also remember, the door was sagging really bad last time I did it, and now perfect. So yeah, interior is all pretty solid. I guess I'll run over to the hood now, under the hood at least, because a decent amount has changed under there. Right here we got under the hood. I'm gonna go ahead and try and just cover everything pretty quick. I have still the Z1 undershroud, still the Z1 air guide, and the undershroud down there. Same intake, just wrapped gold tape on it. I don't know if I had that last time or not, but gold tape, aluminum valve covers just for reliability. Master cylinder brace in there. Inside of here, everything's still the same. Just there's a wire running for the oil temp sensor down there. And yeah, so for the new stuff, I have a Radium catch can just to catch a bit of oil in there. It does work. This oil, or this engine, surprisingly doesn't have nearly as much blow by as I would think. It kind of blows by, but the catch can doesn't really catch a whole lot. But it's more of a peace of mind thing, and it looks really sweet in the engine bay. So no real complaints there. I have a Coilrad cross-flow radiator in there just to help out with cooling because it does get really hot in SoCal, and I just wanted to be safe with this car, so I did all the cooling mods basically. I do need to do more cooling mods, but for right now it's been really solid. Can't complain. The car's never overheated, never had real issues with temperature, because it's been real solid. Plus the Coilrad's super nice quality. You can kind of see it in there. It's a really big core, super nice welds. No complaints about it, no worries about it really. It's just thrown in, been running perfect, no issues there. I replaced the radiator support just because it was cracked on the sides. I don't know if you guys can remember. But yeah, I had some cracks in it, so I just bought a brand new one. I didn't want it cracked anymore, and I couldn't find any that were clean that come into the junkyard because all these cars get crashed in the front. So yeah, I had to buy a brand new one, but it's whatever. It wasn't too much. It was pretty easy to do. In terms of power mods for the engine, at least intake-wise, still have the plenum spacer, still have the throttle body, and that's really it. I have another intake I'm going to run. It's going to run in the bumper, but I have an oil cooler in there, so I don't know if I will be able to, but maybe off to the side somewhere. I'm going to get it figured out, but for right now, just running this intake. The throttle body and the intake spacer makes a pretty big difference. No complaints there. Under the battery, we do have some voltage upgrades. It's just because I'm running subs in here and I want good voltage, so I just have a big 3 with some nice wires running everywhere. I have them ran through the grommets. It looks pretty OEM. It's kind of hard to tell anything was really done when the covers are on. As you see, I kind of just wanted to go with a really clean engine bay and kind of just make it very tasteful and nicely done. I will end up cleaning this whole thing eventually. I do want to paint these wrinkle red or wrinkle black. I'm not a big fan of the red. And then, yeah, but besides that, I think in here it's pretty much good. Or no, actually, there's a couple other things. I have a Nismo thermostat inside of there to make the car run a bit cooler. Definitely helps out a good amount. In terms of the front of this car, we do have, like I said, a Setrab 19-row oil cooler in there, and then we also have a Toyota Sequoia transmission cooler as a power steering cooler. I ended up finding like a 9-row power steering core. I just need to buy fittings and lines for it, so I'll end up running that soon. But for right now, that cooler helped out a lot because I do have bigger wheels and tires on these. As you guys might remember, they're the 265s, and then I did also add an extra degree of caster, so it did end up being kind of a toll on the power steering system, so the fluid would boil over and then the steering would get real heavy. So the cooler definitely made a big difference. The oil cooler helps out a lot, not nearly enough though. Yesterday when I was driving the car, I was driving it pretty hard in the canes and got the oil up to about 250 degrees. So I will probably look into a bigger cooler core, probably like a 25 or a 34 row, because right now it's just the 19 row. I thought it'd be enough, but you know, I guess in California it's not. I should have thought ahead, but can't change it now. So along with engine mods, we'll go ahead and talk about the oil pan spacer. I have a Z1 oil pan spacer on it. I wanted to go with like a Greddy pan, but the Greddy pan doesn't add much oil and the baffles aren't really that good, so I just decided to go with the pan spacer. I also did that so I could run the temperature sensor, because that's where the actual sensor threads into, and it's added about an extra quart. So now this car takes about 8 quarts of oil, which helps out a ton with oil slosh. I guess for oil consumption, even though my car personally does not burn any oil, really. It's been full, and the oil is super clean all the time. So I'm very grateful for that, because I know apparently, well, everyone says VQs have problems, but I've owned 3 and they've all been good. So maybe it's just me that gets lucky, I don't know. The extra quart did help a lot with cooling, but not nearly enough like I was saying, so I will look into a bigger cooler. As for exhaust, I have Kinetics test pipes, Megan Y pipe, and then an ISR catback. And it sounds pretty good. It's not like the average trumpet VQ, but I think it's just because it has a full exhaust. Sounds pretty good, sounds loud too, so when I'm out in the canyons I can really hear it. It really echoes off the walls. It's got some nice pops between shifts if you shift it right, and it's just been super fun that way with the exhaust. One other thing I forgot to mention in here while we're on the topic of kind of engine-based stuff, I have an HR strut bar because I ended up doing polyurethane engine and trans mounts, and when I did the mounts, it raised the engine, and because of the plenum spacer, it actually was hitting the DE strut bar, so I ended up picking up an HR one, and because I have the HR hood, it fits over perfect. And now there's a good amount of clearance between that, so I don't really have to worry about it. I also want to switch to solid engine mounts because the poly ones are kind of whatever, and I have solid ones at my house that I bought from the junkyard, so those will probably end up going in eventually, but right now I'm not super worried about it. The poly ones are fine. Just might want to switch eventually. I guess now we could talk about suspension, just because I'm kind of done with the engine interior exterior kind of thing. Still in the same coilovers. I don't really want to say the name. They're not too bad, I guess. I mean, they're alright. If you watched the last video about this car, you do remember what they are. Still have the Hotchkiss front sway bar, Hotchkiss front sway bar. I did all new SPL bushings in the bottom, so that's for the compression arm, the control arms. I have SPL adjustable tie rod ends, so those are the bump steer adjustable ones. You might be able to see them through the wheel right here. You can see them in there. Those helped out quite a bit with bump steer. I didn't think it would have a whole lot, but then whenever I ended up changing them, I realized how much it had before, and those help a lot. And it's just nice to know the whole front end of this car is spherical. I also have the SPL V3 upper control arms that allowed me to get some more camber and add a degree of caster. So now the car is sitting at about 9 degrees of caster and -3 degrees of camber. Feels great. I have no complaints with the suspension. Like I said, still the upgraded Hotchkiss front sway bar. Where things kind of change is in the rear. I actually switched back to a stock rear sway bar because the Hotchkiss one was just too stiff, and it was kind of causing the car to try and rotate as I would enter a corner and just didn't really feel too great. So I did, like I said, swap back to a stock rear sway bar. Made quite the big difference. I have some adjustable end links in there, SPL end links. I'm a big SPL guy. I had them on my Maxima, and then whenever that car ended up getting totaled, unfortunately, the SPL parts held up amazing. So ever since then, I've been a real advocate for them because I trust them with everything I do. And yeah, so that's that for the rear. You can also see the rear arms in here. I have some Voodoo 13 tie rod, or toe arms, I guess, and then the SPL forged lowers. I had some Trueheart ones before, but then I got these in a deal along with the front control arms. I ended up throwing those in. So now the rear of this car is also set up with about -3 degrees of camber. Rear feels good, the front feels good. You can kind of see the camber here. I don't know how well it'll pick up on the fisheye, but it's got a really good suspension setup. The car loads up great, especially with the stock rear sway bar. It actually allows the rear end to kind of dip, because whenever the rears of these cars dip, they toe out a bit, so it actually rotates the car and feels like it's drifting, but it's not. It just feels amazing the way it's driving. I'll go ahead and touch on the brakes right now. I'm still on the Brembo calipers that I was on before. They're holding up great. The Brembo calipers are more than strong enough to help out with this car, especially on the street and in the Cayennes for right now. Maybe on the track I'll see a different story and maybe upgrade the fronts. But the rears should be good. Calipers are great. Like I said, you just have to get a good rotor and pad set up. For right now, I'm still on the StopTech rotors. These actually ended up getting really hot and heat checking, and the other one is cracking. This one's got a lot of micro cracks in it too, so I am going to be swapping these out real soon. I already ordered new pads. I'm on the EBC blue pads right now. I did experiment a bit with the CSG pads that I uploaded that short on where they shoot the sparks. Those pads were amazing. They just wore down pretty quick because they were already used. They were already kind of done with their life because they were from another guy. They were just hand-me-down because he wanted me to try out with better pads. I ended up loving them, so I picked up some Hawk pads. Those will be going on real soon. I already ordered them. They're just on their way. I'm waiting for them. But the StopTech rotors held up pretty decent, I guess. These pads kind of ruined them, though. They ate through them pretty quickly. So, yeah, I guess we'll see where that goes. But, yeah, still stock. Or no, not stock. Still the same rotors and pads that were on it before. And in the front, I didn't have these last time. I have some brake air guides. They actually duct air into the middle of the rotor and allows them to cool. This is before Z1 came out with their brake cooling duct set that goes like through the bumper or wherever else you want to route it. I would have bought those, but I didn't know at the time, and maybe these will be a little bit better because the pads I bought do run a lot better when they're hot, so hopefully it cools it off just enough. But yeah, the brakes haven't been an issue on this car. I haven't gotten a fade yet. And that's a lie, actually. The pads, the EBC pads, do end up fading with the car being this heavy. It's really not super duper heavy, but I guess it's just too much for these pads. But yeah, the pads, they don't hold up super great, and they are pretty weak. Even on just a Pilot Sport 4S, you can't really lock up the front wheels, which is not ideal. Some other stuff I could touch on briefly is just the stuff I haven't talked about yet, which is going to be the ARP extended studs, front and rear. I always wanted these. Ended up getting them because I needed to do the rear hubs, and then just bought them all at once so I could get them done. Mainly just a trust thing. I just want nice studs. I don't want to have any problems with wheels falling off or any of that, so ended up doing those front and rear. And then in the rear, like I said, the wheel bearings were going out, so while the wheel bearings were going out, I decided to pick up 370Z hubs and axles. So right now the car is on 370Z hubs and axles. Like I said, the hubs are a lot stronger, the bearings are much larger, and then I ended up pressing the studs into those as well. So now the rear is solid, front solid, no complaints there. I also have a G35 diff. It's a different gear ratio in the rear. It's going to be a 3.69, and I did press my solid bushings into that. So different gear ratios in the rear, feels great. And then the whole rear end of this car feels pretty solid just because of all the bushings. I think I had the subframe collars last time as well. I still have those. Haven't changed the bushings out yet. But right now, like I said, it's been pretty solid. One last thing, I always forget to talk about it, but it's a huge part of the car. It has a brand new CD00A transmission in it from Nissan. Bought it brand new. Because my last one was grinding third and it just bothered me so much. It got to a point where I was just going to say why not and drop all the money on a brand new one. No complaints with that, swapped it real easy. The shifter bracket has the solid Z1 bushings in it, so it all feels good. It's still a stock shifter because the stock shifter is actually really good, in my opinion. But yeah, transmission's brand new. it changed the car. I can drive it however I want. I could bang gears super hard. I could downshift. I could do whatever I want, and it just takes it. Love the transmission in it. It honestly made it so much better for me because this car was really fun to drive, and then whenever it would grind third, it'd just be kind of a letdown. So swapping it kind of reopened my love for this car. I swapped it a few months ago, and no complaints there. Definitely happy I ended up doing it. But yeah, I want to say that's it for the car, honestly. I mean, it's been super solid, and I just wanted to make updates about it so I can talk about things that I'm doing and it not be out of place. So yeah, this is how it sits right now. Still driving it, still getting used, still getting built, and I hope to bring you guys along the journey more and kind of update more as little things change. That way this car kind of has a build list. If you go to my channel, you can just see kind of where it started and where it's come.